Wait, I didn't have time to prepare or like small talk. Are we going live?
We can
No,
always edit it out.
All right, cool, cool,
we
cool.
always start immediately just because the pregame banter can
Yeah.
be so fun.
Oh,
So
fair enough.
we'll do the small talk on camera.
Cool, cool. If it makes the cut, that's good. Yeah, sure. Why not?
It's
How's
fun
it
to
going,
toss in
guys?
at the start.
I feel the pressure. How's it going?
It's going well. How are you, man?
Yeah, good, good. Thanks. Let me just move my screens around.
No worries.
Cool
Are
format.
you?
This is Riverside.fm. What is this app, by the way, that we're using?
It's a super cool app especially like for virtual podcasting, because what it does is, one, I mean, you can invite guests. Audio's really clear because it'll actually record locally on your own device. So even
Right.
if your Wi-Fi is not super stable, it'll allow you to have pretty clear audio,
Okay.
regardless. So we've tried out a couple different things, and ultimately this is what we found to work best for us.
And is this the format it records in? Like, so these vertical videos side by side, or how does
Yeah,
it?
so you can have it move all around. I mean, you can have the full screen be you, Omar, if you wanted.
Sorry,
But it also has
do
the
you have
capability
that
for it.
option after you've recorded, so you can like actually switch the edit post
Yeah,
recording?
exactly.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's pretty
exactly.
cool.
It
That's
gives you
really cool.
creative liberation at the end of it. Otherwise, if we wanted to make like clips or anything, three deep is pretty tough. So it gives you the option to kind of do like face tracking, face monitoring, or anything like that as well.
That's very badass. I mean, I still use Zoom for my stuff. I think
Really,
I'm gonna jump on Riverside, man. I'm sold.
it's not too.
Riverside.
I mean, it's not too bad. I think what is it, like $19 a month or something like that? And you
What?
get a free month, um, right off the bat, so you can test it out, see if it works for what you're doing.
I've seen these guys. I've seen it before.
Yeah.
I flirted around with it a little bit, and yeah, okay, I remember. I got the ads. Yeah,
Oh, you had a
cool.
first date with them, but didn't build into anything special.
Well, it is just I don't know. Could you call it a one? It's not even a one night stand. It was just like a little bit of flirting, and then I just left the bar,
You just made eyes across the bar. Yeah, I got you,
and then
man.
Just
forgot
walk
that
straight
the
out the door.
conversation ever happened.
Sometimes that's the hardest to let go of, man. You still have a full dream in front of you. But I mean, we're both stoked for this. I mean, Omar, for
Yeah.
context on our side, we work with Genevieve. Seems like you may have had some partnership with her in the past or whatnot. And obviously, we're at AppSumo. A lot of these episodes are about past partners of AppSumo, kind of explaining where they're at before, during, after. We're not affiliated, but we're affiliated. That's what we always say at the end of the day. But she kind of teased us with this concept that you're building some form of like lifetime deal commandments, or you had some strong convictions with lifetime deals in general. And we've never really educated any of our listening audience on what a lifetime deal represents and what it looks like from a pragmatic perspective. So for this one, we're really just hoping for three guys to banter, share thoughts, hear kind of your journey of lifetime deals, how you kind of built these commandments, if they do exist or if they're about to exist, and kind of just have an educational journey with a little bit of flair and fun baked into it.
No, I love it. I'm totally up for it. And yes, it is true. What you seek is true. I am making the commandments of the lifetime deal. The lifetime deal commandments. That is true. Yeah, I mean, where can we start? I mean, I have a wealth of background in launching lifetime deals. Hence, why I was really motivated to kind of dive into this content. But
let's
more so
let's
because I want to educate startup founders, because I've had backlash from products. I've had product launches go incredibly well, and I've also had faced the backlash of not managing user expectation well within a lifetime deal community, or yeah, and that's primarily it, and that could cause extremely negative consequences both to your team and the community you're building and your product ultimately. So that's where this motivation came from, is to educate founders. And people say stuff, but they don't, like, they say, oh, you cannot do this, or you should not be able to do that, and this marketing campaign wasn't in line with what we thought was supposed to happen. And people like to hold you to account in the public sphere, but they don't actually know what they're talking about. And for me, that's where it came from, is that, okay, well, what is actually true? Like, what is morally correct? What's ethical? And no one's No one's put this in written form.
Love
I
it.
love that, man. I mean, I think me and Jason are both curious to start at the start, right? Like, how did you discover a lifetime deal, right? I mean, I was in the SaaS world for a long time, didn't know about its existence until I kind of came to AppSumo myself personally. What was your journey to discover this marketing channel? What was your initial thoughts on it? Were you hesitant? Were you excited? Or what does that kind of origin story look like, man?
Yeah, lifetime deal. Okay, I discovered lifetime deal software around 2016. Where I was a graphic designer at the time. I was kind of dabbling in a lot of side hustles at the same time. So e-learning, e-commerce, and things like I've had success and failures and everything, but um, a few entrepreneurs really sparked an interest in SaaS. And I thought that the path didn't seem as intimidating when I was shown the route. Like, I mean, I met this 17-year-old that launched his first SaaS, and he was like essentially a millionaire. And so that was like a light bulb moment. Like, okay, anyone can actually do this, right? And I have an advantage. I'm a designer, so I can mock up a user interface and put it together. And I love solving these kind of complex problems. And so that gave me the confidence to kind of pursue SaaS. And then I started, as I was building SaaS, I had my MVP design. I was developing a design tool at the time. Since I had success in e-commerce, the logical route for me, or the problem I had identified, was entrepreneurs struggled with image design, image automation, like product image automation, removing backgrounds and optimizing the product image, creating cool graphics around them to describe the product benefits and things like that. And Canva certainly didn't have any e-commerce focused template. So this is my route. And I said, okay, here's a problem. And this is something I have a lot of expertise in, being an e-commerce entrepreneur. Also at the same time, I founded an agency that was another second side hustle that was servicing e-commerce entrepreneurs to help them, kind of create, sort of infographics for the Amazon stores and things like that. Right. So I had a wealth of background on how to use product imagery to scale e-com businesses, and that's where the SaaS idea came from. So I designed the SaaS, put it out to, spend a lot of time building an MVP with some developers that I hired. And while that was being built, I had to identify business models. Okay, how am I going to launch this thing and monetize it? And that's where I came across different models that were shown to me. And I was very naive and inexperienced at that time, but the models that were shown to me were, you might have been familiar of Videos back in the day. Have you heard of Videos in 2016? It's spelt with a V
Is that a
I D.
tool?
Yes, OY, like videos, like VIDDYOZE, like yos, right? So
Okay.
one of those quirky spellings, videos. And what they did, this is back in 2016. So it's very simple interface where you drop some assets and it automated some video production for you, like simple stuff like stings and intros and things like that. And these founders were millionaires, right? They'd launched this software, and I was like, okay, well, look, and they'd also put their story out in the public domain. They have a YouTube channel talking about the journey and building six-figure software and things like that. And so this piqued an interest, and I thought, okay, this is a path to figure out how I can market my software. And what they were doing was they're running lifetime deals on JVZoo, right? Have you heard of JVZoo by any chance?
No, I feel like I'm getting super educated on what was going on in the SaaS world in 2016.
Yeah, I mean, this is still going on right now, but JVZoo at the time wasn't necessarily like what it is now. It's it was, but no one identified to being this kind of jungle of like affiliates and low quality software. That's what it really is.
It's a little quirky
But
now.
yeah, I mean, when you're in the community, you don't necessarily see it that way. You just see it as this community that's helping each other, that's supporting early software. They have the same kind of bells and whistles of like the AppSumo community, but there's a lot of inauthenticity going on in that community that you have to be aware of, right? A lot of red flag softwares. But anyway, I didn't realize that at the time. I was pointed in this direction. I saw a lot of people, entrepreneurs, both based where I'm in London and in the US and other places, launching software and having huge success, right? And for me, that was like, okay, damn, let me just follow this path. And they made it quite seamless and simple. You can create an account on JVZoo and list your product and things like that. And so I started building my business model around that. And typically you see in lifetime deals, it's like $97. with JVZoo, at least the funnels are all the same. They have long landing pages, one click, sell pages. Sometimes they're not transparent about pricing. So they'd like get you to sign up. Then they push you to like a pricing page where you see, okay, this is the pricing. And that's just a tactic to then, just have your email and remarket you. And I was utilizing all these practices without thinking of the consequences. Like let me pull the email, then show them the pricing. And then the worst part about like these communities is what they tend to do after the sale process. So the moment you get the first sale, like as in you buy the core product, they then push you to multiple upsells, one-click upsells, right? Yeah. And I never necessarily thought there was something wrong with that. But so what would happen is you purchase a product, your main software, they push you to an upsell page where they have this add-on bonus, like a plugin or something. And that will be an extra $40, and they'll sell you on the value. They'll have a separate video for that. And the cancel button will be like in this really, really like obscure space on the landing page.
Like a really hidden unsubscribe button.
A very hidden out cancel. I don't want this upsell button, right? Yeah. And it's very obviously intentful. But so what users would do would click the upsell, and it would actually, the way a lot of these ClickFunnels sites work is that, once you click the forbidden upgrade button, it would actually add to your billing, automatically. So you wouldn't have a choice. The moment you click that, it would actually charge you, right? Yeah. And then it would do the same thing on the second and the third upsell. A lot of users are aware of this in JVZoo, so they know where to look for the cancel buttons, as long as there is obviously a cancel button. Otherwise, even them, they would get quite disappointed in your kind of funnel tactics, right? But so this is the funnel I had. I made it quite obvious that there's a cancel and an upgrade button, but I still had these one-click upsells. And then, so I put that out there, and I wasn't really doing any active marketing. I was about to launch JVZoo. A lot of things happened in between before I hit the launch button. For example, I tried to go raise VC funding and all kinds of stuff. Eventually, I got advice to, like, before you launch it on JVZoo, put it on Product Hunt, right? Yeah. Because you could get some feedback and stuff like that. And I thought, okay, let me do that first, right? And so we put it on Product Hunt. Lo and behold, we had so much interest. And I think one of the reasons we had such peak, and this is 2019, by the way, the reason we had such peak interest is because we were the recipe of like a successful MVP, meaning product meets market at the right time, because we were the only design tool, despite still having like tons of competitors at the time, 2019. We were the only design tool that focused, number one, on e-commerce, but also had an AI-based background removal tool. No one had it. Not even Canva had the AI-based background removal tool at the time. And people perceived us as the first. And so we had so much interest on Product Hunt. And then suddenly this conversation was happening online in forums, in the lifetime deal communities, on Facebook, in AppSumo communities, and things like that. And without me realizing, I just launched it on Product Hunt and started communicating with the users, giving me feedback. But the backlash was horrid because of the upsell. So that's how I discovered lifetime deals.
Interesting. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm just kind of learning about JVZoo. So, like, what I guess is the main differentiator between like an AppSumo and a JVZoo? Is it more so like you get a higher revenue share, you get exposure to a community, or is JVZoo a company or a community?
It's a community of like shovel sellers. That's the best way to describe it. So,
but you get all of the revenue. Is that kind of the way it works? Like, there's no company behind it, I assume. So is it like you get all of the revenue? It's just a place to get exposure, right?
No. There is a company behind it that run the whole system, like AppSumo. So you have to list your product and they have to approve it and things like that. But the community is sort of like almost like it feels like a very closed shovel selling type community. So what I mean by that is that the people selling the product and the people buying the product, also sometimes the people selling their own products, and they're sort of like there's that partnership going on, which is really weird. Like, so JVZoo is filled with affiliates, right? And there's leaderboard structures. And so what a launch looks like is, popular product creator would launch a product, the marketing is all about getting affiliates. That's what it is. It's not about selling it to a customer. So you launch a product in JVZoo, you get tons of affiliates to promote it, and you create a leaderboard and some reward system to encourage users to sell it, if that makes sense, right? So what was interesting about me is that I didn't actually end up listing it on NJVZoo, but I used the same typical JVZoo style tactics in my funnel, if that makes sense, but launched it on
Yeah.
Product Hunt instead, right? And so because of that, the feedback I was getting from the Product Hunt community and the AppSumo type community was that, oh, you guys look shady. You look like you come from the JVZoo community. And I started figuring all this stuff like off the cuff. Like I had no clue, that what it meant to be, what it meant to look like a JVZoo SaaS product. I didn't know the implications of that at all. But I started learning this as soon as I push it out on Product Hunt with the backlash.
Interesting. I'm curious with the lifetime deal. I mean, you brought up like your ambitions of like revenue and success a lot. Was that like the idea behind the formation of a lifetime deal? Was get as much revenue as you can as possible? Was it for those more longer term goals of let me actually build a community and an early adapter audience, or what was the intention behind the original offer?
Yeah, so it's really weird because when I figured out lifetime deal as a business model, I kind of understood the value of building a community before, because JVZoo didn't certainly promote that, but I kind of figured that out by myself, if that makes sense, because I understood subscription software, right? And I paid for some of those. So I thought to myself, if I was promoting a lifetime deal of my software, eventually I'd want to switch it to subscription. But why would I be selling a lifetime deal in that case? And how limited would that be? So there's two things that I kind of almost figured out by myself without getting any advice, which was creating a limited deal with limited seats, so that we can get some initial sort of investment to then rebuild into the product, and also communicating. I thought of communicating this transparently through my funnel. So on the top fold and in the pricing fold, you'd see, hey, what we're trying to do now is get an early batch of users to try our product, test it out, use some of our cool features, but it's all about building it together, giving us feedback and participating in this growth. And I think one of the reasons as well that I went down that route and being sort of transparent and honest was because I was also very insecure about my product, because it was my first product and I didn't know, I didn't want to make sort of this really confident stance that this is a polished product and this is all you need. And so I was just really upfront literally in the payment form section. There was like a section, like a little note there saying, hey, this is an early adopter deal and what that means, and what it means to be an early adopter of the product. So it's weird how I figured that out by myself. I may have subconsciously pulled this off from another reference, but I don't know where, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it makes a ton of sense. And I'm curious, like your expectation of a lifetime deal, right? I mean, AppSumo, there's not a catch-22. It really is just like point blank, black and white. We expect it to be a company that's going to be around for a long time and user gets access indefinitely, right? With like this JVZoo climate, is it the same expectation that you're going to buy a tool and you're going to have access to it for 5 years? Or was your expectation like, if they can get 1 year and the company folds, that's okay for a lifetime deal? Or how are you kind of interpreting the luscious term of lifetime?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't actually know what to expect because I didn't know what the user experience was going to look like, other than what I was seeing on Marketing Funnel. So as far as I could see, I thought, okay, these users are genuinely buying JVZ products for the value the product offers. I did question the whole the aggressive affiliate marketing they would do, like the leaderboards and the rewards and all that stuff. I mean, if you look at some of this stuff, is ridiculous. If you just check out a typical JVZ launch, like they'll have all these affiliate videos. Like there's this one guy I need you to check out, who's Ali Chowdhury, who's like notorious for doing this. Is it Ali Chowdhury or Ali? I think Ali Chowdhury. Just go check that out. He's based in London, and his affiliate videos would literally be him, like, he'd hire this kind of fake spaceship where he'd just descend from a spaceship, and then he'd be like, guys, affiliates of JVZoo, I've got this amazing offer for you guys to promote. And he's just promoting his software and he's talking about it and he talks about the rewards. So the rewards will be actually like, for example, one of the rewards will be a Mustang, right? And he'll just drive in a Mustang and say, reward number 1, you get this bright and beautiful yellow colored Mustang, so it's just extremely like wild. It's extremely wild, And so definitely that like was a weird signal in my head. Like I couldn't really adjust to it. but I just didn't know. I didn't know any better at the time. So
Yeah. With like the insecurities about the product and like obviously the MVP,
yeah,
what was that pushback when you were pushing upsells? Because I think like that's what's really unique about a lifetime deal where you get access to everything right at the start is like
yeah,
people are willing to work with you through that MVP. They're willing to give you feedback throughout the process. And like that's really where the value is in the lifetime deal.
yeah.
But I assume like that's something you learned when you were trying to do the upsells is like those you weren't getting that kind of feedback. That wasn't
No, it was just
yeah.
complete trash talk. Like, so the moment people discovered, like, and what was interesting is that look, I'm quick to adapt. So if I'll take user feedback really seriously. So what happened was I launched on Product Hunt, and people were buying it. Like I mean, my first day was like $10,000 on the first day, and that scaled like. Just to give you context, Glorify, when it launched in 2019 September, our revenue numbers was insane. Maybe we can throw some graphs in there. I'm happy to share that stuff with you, but. We literally went from zero revenue to, I didn't expect this at all, but it went straight to about $100,000 in our first month. And then it went on to do about $300,000 in its third month, right? And this is not with JVZoo, by the way. This is just all Product Hunt, and it leaked into the different lifetime deal communities, right?
Yeah.
And so people who are familiar with the hidden commandments of lifetime deal ethos, right, that is never really like communicated or understood. They started commenting on my Product Hunt listing, saying things like, "This seems JVZoo-ish." I didn't even know what JVZoo-ish was. Like, I knew what JVZoo, but I didn't know what it meant to be JVZoo-ish. So I had to ask them, "Can you kindly please explain what do you mean by my product seems JVZoo-ish?" So then they'll go into it. They'll say like, "Well, you got this one-click upsell. The cancel button is very obscure. You can't find it. It's very vague. You seem like you're just trying to." Aggressively take more money after the first product offering and not be inclusive in your initial deal. And I said, well, can I not sell sub products? Is this unethical for some reason? I didn't think of it unethical at the time. And they said, yeah, because look, you're promoting this MVP, but then you're also trying to shove us sub products post the purchase funnel, post the purchase flow, right? And so then I started to empathize and understand that. And in day one, when I got that feedback, I took it down all the upsells immediately, right? So it was just this one single product, and I included a lot of what I actually did was took the upsells and separated it into two tiers, right? So instead of had like a one tier purchase, I took, okay, $97 plan and $197 plan with the additional plugins for like stock images and things like that.
Yeah.
And people took that really well, and then I also put that on a transparent page where pricing was visible versus having to sign up first. And people appreciated that. And then I got people to take down their comments. Say, look, I changed this for you. I appreciate your feedback. This is very educational for me. Check these changes I've done. Does this make you convinced that we're not JVZoo-ish, right? And they were like, no, look, I appreciate it. Like, you guys took our feedback seriously, and that's what we want to see. And comment disappeared.
What's funny is both Brendan and I kind of work. I mean, you're talking about like these hidden 10 commandments.
Yeah.
What we do is like we literally advise people through the lifetime deal process, like set them up. So a lot of what you're figuring out is like what we talk about every day. So I'm excited to kind of dive into like now we've got the background of what like the reason you built this out, but like what is what you built out, and like maybe we can banter back and forth and see if we've had similar experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do so. I mean, where do you guys want to start? Do you want to pose a question? Do you want me to ask you questions, or?
Well, I want to hear the first commandment. What's the most important commandment?
Go for it. Yeah, sure. All right, look, let's do it. Well, look, I started this article a couple of years ago, and one of the reasons was where I had built a framework in my mind over doing lifetime deals over a year, understanding just through user communication, understood that couple of things that you don't do. You don't launch a lifetime deal and increase the price later on because your previous users get burnt. Like that's a basic one, for example, right? But I also had to figure out how to still develop new models of revenue because we weren't ready to go into subscriptions. We tried, it was a complete failure, but lifetime revenue was working. So there was different ways that we could still enhance scarcity in an ethical format that actually proven to be beneficial to us and didn't cross those kind of those issues that the lifetime deal community members had. And so I had to navigate that through very delicately. So things like it seemed conceivable and okay to launch another lifetime deal in a couple of months that didn't outcast the previous users. So you could either keep it at the same price or even offer a lower price tier, but it had to be significantly reduced features, as an example, and people didn't seem to have a problem with that, right? So I did that for a year, and then I think the following year, what ended up happening was one person just called me out for like some another product that I launched, basically, that had nothing to do with Glorify. And this is when I'd realized, okay, I had it. Like, look, people are just creating rules and they don't exist. So let me put the rules into paper. So this is where it starts. Okay, so I'm going to start with the unspoken sacred rules of a lifetime deal community, or running a lifetime deal. So sacred rule number 1. See if you agree with me on these. You either agree or disagree, and if you have a contention, we'd love to hear it. Of course, it'd be nice to hear your thoughts 100%. On it. So, sacred rule number 1: thou shalt not sell a cheaper lifetime deal than a previous one. This is an obvious one I just iterated earlier.
Yeah, this one I think is interesting. I think it's interesting because, I mean, we've had experience with companies that launch lifetime deals either elsewhere or on their own sites. And what we do is we ensure that the deals on AppSumo are significantly more value. We're not offering the exact same plan, but it's got to be more value because, as you mentioned, you don't want to have a worse plan than prior. So AppSumo, one, we work with tools that have had other lifetime deals. We need that value, but we also have exclusivity. Yeah. So what we do and why, I mean, people continue to come back for us is like, you can't just come to us and then go to a competitor right away, because that's where you're going to get bad feedback. Because a lot of people are shopping on multiple of these sites. And if they think you're going to pop up somewhere else right afterwards, they're not going to get the benefit, and you're not going to get the benefit of that lifetime deal, which is like the fear of missing out.
Yep.
So we do work with tools, and I would be curious to hear their back end experiences after that. But I think like the most important piece of that is just not, in most scenarios, it's unbeneficial to bounce around between lifetime deal sites, because that's where you do get that bad feedback, or you're devaluing your product.
So your contention, this is an interesting nuance to this rule, I probably develop a new rule, because what you're saying is, I know AppSumo have this exclusivity where if you launch a product, you shouldn't bounce around other sites, right? Yeah. Am I correct in saying that? So I'm going to put a note here to develop my commandments a bit further into this, because I might open up a discussion about that later. But do you agree though that people should not run as cheap a lifetime deal than a previous one?
I think it's all about the precedent that you set, right? I mean, I don't think you should ever be handcuffed. We see a lot of companies that do a lifetime deal prior and have like $199 price point. They've never done this before, and they come to AppSumo. We have a couple of heuristics, right? We know price points, we know our market, we know the audience there. It's all about understanding the logic of how you're going to treat those past buyers, right? If we offer a lifetime deal at $49 compared to your $199, maybe those users are grandfathered immediately into a third code stack or something where their value to dollar stays relevant. But we do want to give our community an entry point that we know works, just because it's a marketplace. The audience sets the tone, and it'd be near impossible to be able to be handcuffed by something you built independently without any expertise or advice there. But if you're just doing it on your website month over month and you're not kind of unlocking a new community and re-engaging thought processes, I don't think you should slight your past buyers, and definitely had those conversations.
Right. So I think the development of this rule, and I actually agree with you guys. I think rather than just make it a blanket cheaper lifetime deal, it should not devalue a previous deal. Would that be better in reevaluating that?
Yeah, I think absolutely. It's just providing value. You got to give and take. So when you
thou shall not devalue a previous deal. Thou shall not sell a more valuable deal and devalue a previous deal. Does that make sense?
Devalue prior buyers?
Prior buyers? Yeah, devalue prior buyers.
Thou shall not offer same deal for cheaper price without providing additional value. Really getting it.
Right. Look,
it's early in the morning here.
This is going to be recorded.
We're working.
Yeah, I mean, as long as this is recorded, I'm gonna take this feedback and I'm gonna try to reevaluate this because it can't be just. I think there's more nuance than just saying blanket cheaper lifetime deal. So we'll move on
Yeah.
from that one. I'll go to the next one. Sacred rule number 2: Thou shalt not have a one-click JVSU style upsell.
Brennan could take this
But
one.
I'm sure.
So
uh,
I'm curious on this upsell, is it upgrading like your lifetime deal plan, or is this converting you into a paid month-over-month subscription with this upsell? Is it like a feature stack that you're paying a recurring cost for, or
No, so when we defined, so JV Zoo style upsell would come with its definition, which is literally a zealous landing page that follows the initial purchase, trying to encourage you to purchase another product within your product stack. So like a plugin, it's not an upgrade. It's not. It's not a different tier. It's just a plugin of some sort, an additional value package.
yeah, I'm 100% with you. I think transparency is the name of the game here. You should know
Right.
what you're buying and what your end goal is going to be if you want to continue, but don't
Yeah.
try to cash grab me.
Yeah. Brendan
Maybe-
actually had a good simile for this, and I think it kind of backs into providing all the value up front, is like, especially when it's for lifetime deals.
Yeah.
You want to have a vehicle that has all the means to go wherever you want, and all you're providing with a lifetime deal is different options for how much gas you're putting into it.
Yeah.
So like, that's the psychology at AppSumo, is like, you want to have almost all the features included in every plan, but you're just scaling by certain limitations. So if you
Right.
have those add-ons, and like, that's a rule we have at AppSumo, is like, when they sign up, because the transaction's already happened, we don't allow them to have a credit card be required during sign up, because otherwise that's just providing horrible feedback for the partner and a horrible experience overall. So I mean, that commandment's for sure good as is.
Well, you know what? I think I might even develop, based on your feedback again, I might develop this further into not making too exclusive to JVZoo, because that's what I've done based on my subjective experience. So I think I might expand this further in saying what you expanded on, which is trying to make it all encompassing, so the fact that what you should be able to get all of your features within that for initial stack, and then, like you said, scale on those features by choosing different tiers, right? So let me try.
I mean, I think you definitely don't want to bait and switch customers, right? And a lot of the times with the lifetime deal, you have to understand the community is sampling a lot of different products and converting off a lot of different products. And you do have to have like the front door open to a pretty full house, just so people get excited enough to stay in your product at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
If you are on an alternative tool like a MailChimp and you see a new email marketing platform come out and it's severely limited in everything you just left, it's really tough to kind of make those considerations to either stay in the tool or not get that refund, right? So I mean, that's more the premise of it, is you want a house that's built for like a sustainable, exciting growth that you can bet on, right? It can be a fixer upper, but you need to be able to see the potential in a tool to start.
Yeah. No, I love this, guys. This is really helpful actually to further develop my commandments. I mean, just sort of off the record, just if I may, like, do you mind me using this video as well for my? Because what I'm trying to do is, I've interviewed a bunch of people with their own thoughts, both people from the community, SaaS founders, and AppSumo, and I'm trying to construct this whole narrative in a documentary form, based on what people's thoughts. And you guys seem like you've had a lot of these conversations, like you mentioned in the beginning of this interview, which gives actually more. It's probably the most deepest insight I've seen so far, which is really cool. So I appreciate that. If we can do that,
we'll send over the video and the audio, and feel free to do whatever you please with it.
Appreciate it. And you know what we might do? Let's make the final version of these commandments a collaborative thing, if possible. So you guys can check it out. Do a once over and see if you do agree with both the commandments. The way I'm doing is the commandment and like the fine print underneath to expand on the thought behind it. And then we can finalize on it. So, sacred rule number 3: thou must not show outward aggression towards the sacred buyer community as a founder.
Oh, I like this one a lot, because I tell all my founders this. It's kind of like going from an overnight celebrity when you do a lifetime deal, at least on AppSumo, right? if you're a celebrity, if you're somebody in the public, you're going to get backlash, every form of opinion possible. And you have to be able to take that with a kind, generous tone of just like being grateful for feedback and looking for understanding above all, right? You can't coach people out of their thoughts, and you have to be ready for any type of information because you're going in front of 10 people coming to your website, potentially to hundreds of thousands of eyeballs seeing your tool. So
Yeah.
it's just an expectation when we do in these campaigns, right?
Especially because other people are going to be looking at that user experience, and they're going to be seeing like, this is the customer experience we're going to be getting for a long period of time going forward. So if I want to grow with this tool, I want this team to be receptive.
Yeah, exactly. I think other users, like, there's some users that like to put the founders to test, like see how much of my pain in the assness can they handle.
Yeah.
You know, I've come across these, and I actually appreciate it. You know, it really helps.
Yeah.
It helped me develop a lot of the sort of the mind muscle to handle that initially. And it's interestingly, like a lot of the tougher users in the early stage become our power users. You know, which is pretty cool, right?
100%. I think that. Well, go ahead, Brendan.
I mean, that's just where you win by culture, right? I mean, so much of separating a company is about what the user experience is going to look like. And a public comment where you're handling confrontation like a very powerful and polite way with like information, like is a way to distinctly just like showcase your company of like, hey, when you're a user, this is how we treat you. Without kind of having that privacy, which is really powerful to get more people into a tool at the end of the day.
I do think there has to be a balance though, because you can't be walked all over, like especially if something's not included in the deal plan and people are complaining about it or something, and like there's a back end reason, like, oh, we haven't developed this yet, or like, you know, this is a big back end cost for us. Like, you need like a lifetime deal for, in my opinion, is all about transparency. So like you need to be able to like provide great, you know, feedback and, you know, take it with a good tone and, you know, provide good customer service, but you also need to have a little bit of like pushback in some cases. You can't just be getting walked over.
Yeah,
Brendan, if you feel the same as that.
I do agree with you.
There's a line between being assertive and aggressive, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely agree with that. I mean, the only thing I would say is that, you know, being disagreeable is like, just like you said, is absolutely fine as long as it's met with politeness, you know. And emotion in check, you know, and I think sometimes like us founders, especially, we're trying to handle the entire mechanics of your funnel, from both customer success all the way to like marketing and trying to be founder led. You know, I think that's where a lot of founders drop the ball. You know, like I've seen it, like where because they're managing so much, the frustration gets to them, and then emotions come to become the forefront, you know, and that's where it becomes like a downward spiral. But I've been very strategic in that the moment, like I found customer support in the first week extremely overwhelming, right? And I started noticing like a dip in my mental health. Like, you know, I wasn't looking things, even though all this revenue was coming in, I didn't see it as a positive thing. It was really weird. But the moment I got customer support hired, and I had, you know, a wonderful partner to help me kind of, you know, sew those mechanics together. We brought customer support in. We hired them from Philippines, and I mean, they're just the nicest people ever, right? And they were doing an excellent job, you know. And so like that just took away that mental kind of mental health issue away from me, you know, the sort of the frustration of dealing with users, you know, on a day-to-day level. And then for me, it just became like when you start dealing with them on a community level, it's much easier. Like, because on a privately, they can seem a lot more aggressive sometimes. But when things are in like a public domain, it's not as bad.
And like sorry, just like a live example to like what it looks like. I think I see a lot of partners where if it's like a feature not being included, like the two ways they handle it, and the better way obviously is some people will be like, do you really expect us to offer that in a lifetime deal? The best way to do it is just build your case, provide context. Hey, appreciate the sentiment. Here's why this isn't included. Like that's what I tell my founders, right? Just tell them the why. You know, if we can't ever have this functionality, that's totally fine. Just bring them a part of the journey and the cost associated with it compared to just snubbing them off right away.
Exactly. Yeah, I totally agree. Fully. All right, cool. So let's go into what's my next rule, man? All right. So sacred rule number 4, thou must always show quarterly progress on your roadmap. Now, quarterly is very arbitrary, but, you know, regular, just to say regular progress on your roadmap.
I
Agree
mean,
or
I think a
disagree?
roadmap, I noticed that your site still has a roadmap, which is really
Yeah.
cool because you're a well built out company. But I think with the lifetime deal, as we mentioned, like people are buying into a tool, they're investing in it. So if they can see how, where the company's going and how you guys are progressing, like that's going to drive up, one, the purchasers, and two, loyalty.
Yeah, cool. So I'm going to take that as 100% agreed. What about Brendan? How are you feeling about that?
I think every company should, and I think it's like the most important thing you can do because you're really selling an idea most of the time, right? And you always want
Yeah.
to keep people bought into the mission and the growth and be visionaries in your product along with you. And it kind of just gets people excited that, oh yeah, no, I'm not churning or I'm not going into another platform. This is coming up, or I'm always taken care of, right? If someone feels they're always taken care of and have a voice in the room, like that's how you
Yeah.
get loyalty. So you get a
It
band
all
voice.
it also prevents you from having to answer a bunch of questions and horrible like reviews and stuff. Like, hey, as you see on the roadmap, like that functionality is actually coming out in Q3. You'll be super
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah, I've had lots of interesting insight about this particular rule. One of them being like lots of caveats, like making sure that you're confident in your roadmap, or don't make your timelines. You can make it a bit like vague, as not vague, but just give a range of dates, perhaps, because development timelines are always going to be arbitrary based on like
Yeah.
milestones and iteration and things like that. So you can never get in bang on. And I haven't seen to this day, I haven't seen some of the top like tiered companies manage their roadmap commitments, like you see it all the time, right? So I think definitely just be cautious, and especially when it comes to a lifetime deal. What I try to do is I started removing dates eventually. I know our roadmap right now on our site has dates or a range of dates, but when we started off, we took off dates for a temporary time, and it was actually quite helpful. Like we didn't have the pressured expectation.
Takes a little bit of weight off your shoulders too.
For sure. Unless, of course, you're very confident in a particular development, saying, "Hey, look, this is definitely going to be delivered within Q1, Q2." And so that's, I think, a bit more reasonable, basically. So, So sacred rule number. Am I in 4? I actually misnumbered these. So, what last one was 4? So now it's 5. Sacred rule number 5: Thou must not change an agreed structure of the original deal. Talking about features and things like that. So, the structure of the deal. Or let's just rephrase that, because again, this is not complete. Thou must not change the value of the structure of the original deal, or devalue the structure of the original deal, if that makes sense. So take away value from that structure, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd write that one in pen, not pencil. Like that's.
Yeah. Have you ever seen
I
a
think that
founder
one's
take
perfect.
away a feature? Like, I mean, just because of the redundancy of something, or
So I have personally, and again,
yeah.
it's all about transparency, right? With an AppSumo plan, we tie every lifetime deal to a public plan, right? So we just
Mhm.
expect usage or functionality to be identical to what somebody who bought the plan on their monthly package is experiencing, right? So if a feature gets removed or revoked from the entire company palette, it's understandable that our users would lose that feature at the end of the day too. It's obviously not a goal or whatnot, but we just want parity with how you treat any other customer at the end of the day. So
Right.
that's why
I
it's
think
so
that's
important
fair.
to kind of tie these to plans. Yeah.
That's very fair. But I'm just curious to know, like, in the case of, okay, what if their public plans, in the normal plans on their site actually change dramatically? Is that in line with AppSumo terms? Like, so like if they remove a bunch of features and move them up a tier or something like that?
So normally I like to have a conversation and have a head in the room, right? We understand our community and how they behave and like want to work through a PR strategy or whatnot. But
Yeah.
typically, like I said, if you had a professional plan label on your website and you're just going to revoke that immediately, the first thing we'd ask is, okay, every user that you currently have on your professional plan, independent of AppSumo, what happens to them? And we'd
Right.
expect a very similar experience to our users, right? So
Right.
it's definitely about just understanding the cards you dealt at the beginning, and then the user can have a predictable experience.
Right. Okay. So running whatever you're running on your original like native deal should be run parallel with whatever you've promised on AppSumo.
Yeah, there has to be like synchronicity between
Yeah.
what you're doing as a company and the users who bought you through like a third party link there.
Makes sense. And that kind of mapping has been a huge struggle for me because, I didn't have that foresight when I launched Glorify, so we had an initial set of features, and for me, it was just about trying to make as much money as possible so we can develop the product further, and that was the whole goal. But, these nuanced things could be quite important to users. So when we start to move features around and, change limits in some way became problematic. And we try to do it very intentful without affecting users, but sometimes where, certain limits had to be slightly dropped or slightly tweaked and adjusted, where not necessarily all users felt the burn of that, or it didn't really bother them. There's a few set of users that are very nitpicky, in how they see those changes, and maybe it's sort of like them raising a flag of the start of something that could follow up with more dramatic changes, so they're just kind of addressing something before it escalates, and I understand, I empathize with that. But it's very nuanced, because imagine starting a product and you're talking about 3-4 years of development. You don't know what you're going to be doing in 3 years. Design tools with AI, the whole design space has dramatically changed in the last 3 months alone. So we're completely rethinking our model. And I think in those cases, it's conceivable, and it's you can tell that users are more empathetic towards you if you are more transparent about the communication. Like, one of the things we had to do was drop a whole feature set, because of the redundancy of it, and they're respectful of it, because like background removal tools, for example, they've become so common. I mean, you have it on your iOS now, right? So what's the point of running credits on a tool like that? So
Sure.
People originally bought Glorify with credits for these tools, and then they were tiered based on those credits for background removal tool. So we had to kind of create a expectation management strategy where we just a user backlash strategy, to kind of maintain people's perception of us, So yeah, I mean, okay, so where was I? Not blah 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 blah. Sacred rule number 6: thou can only give away coupon codes to private tribes in exclusivity. Does that make sense?
You're gonna have
Not
to
fully. Yeah.
give me a definition on that one.
Yeah, because this is very particular to a few founders, including myself, experience. So we'd run a deal, right? Could be with AppSumo, anyone else, and then we post that whole exclusivity time frame, and we're able to run deals in other communities. But these communities now expect, because it's private and they only have, let's say, a few thousand users, they expect a discount coupon code, right? And does that bode well with the existing users, and what's the impact of that? And so those are the assessments we had to make. We've been approached by e-commerce communities that are not necessarily part of the lifetime deal community, but they need a lucrative deal, and so those are some of the struggles we've had to make a decision on, and
seems kind of similar, I think, to Rule 2, right? Thou shalt not provide lower value to.
Yeah, but there's a nuance here, which is, what if it's to an exclusive community, a gated community, where to be part of it, you'd had to buy some sort of initial product offering, like a course or something like that, So let's just say you're part of Alex Becker's, sort of mastermind, e-learning mastermind or something like that, and they've already paid I don't know, something like $2,000 to get into the program, so that there's an upfront commitment. So yeah. Do you think that's fair to then run a deal with them with a major slice of the original deal price for your previous users?
I think so. I mean, what we really push, especially if it's like a private community like that, is you don't see a whole lot of cannibalization regardless. So most of the people who are probably on there aren't in your community currently. And it's kind of the same thing we push on AppSumo, is you're kind of getting in front of a unique buyer segment. Not.
So I feel the same way. It's just that it so happens to be that sometimes your existing user base are in those communities, right? The exchange they've had within that community, the transaction.
You're gonna have a few people here and there who are gonna be oddballs, and then you got to deal with one-off scenarios. But I'd say as a whole, it doesn't seem like a massive problem, especially if it's a limited offering.
I mean,
Brendan, what's
you
your
have to
take on that?
understand that a disgruntled user does have a significant impact. They seem to be the loudest, and especially in your
Yeah,
private communities, they'll drop a message, they'll DM people, they'll do whatever it takes. Like, hey, do you notice this happened? And they can be quite vicious. So this
sure.
is why I raised
Yeah,
the rule despite it.
yeah. I mean, I've probably worked with over 700 companies. I haven't heard of this unique situation with a lifetime deal yet, but I think it really
Yeah,
just goes to your ethos that you've kind of brought up a couple times now. Is if you're going to do it, I wouldn't have like the intention of no one ever finding out and be like, oh my gosh, what happens if they do? I'd kind of go into it saying, okay, if a user was disgruntled, I already know what I'm going to say, what the
yeah,
context is going to be, and have a very understandable and respectful conversation with that user. Hey
yeah,
man, like super appreciative you bought that original lifetime deal. This was a really cool experience for our company to be a part of this type of offering. And as a user, I'm sure you want the best for all of us involved in this house, right?
yeah,
Um, what can we do to like obviously make this better for you, rectify this? Like
yeah,
I wouldn't go into it with the intentions of not having anyone find out, because then that kind of
yeah.
looks a little bit more sleazy. It'd be more, okay, if someone finds out, we already know what we're gonna do, right?
Exactly. And this is sort of the approach we took. Like, those disgruntled users that came to us, we just handheld them through, what can we how can we kind of like mitigate the situation with you? So like, yeah, we did offer a deal in this community. We didn't necessarily know you were part of this community, but, how can we still make it lucrative for you? And so there was different kind of offerings that we were able to, or agreements we were able to come to, like, increase the tier or offer them more so that they were happy, or even talk to the community leaders within the community that they're in so that they can be kind of compensated for. But it is a problem. It happens. And I've seen this like a few times, but maybe not as like sort of on mass or scale. But the last rule I have here for you guys is, yeah, ready for it?
Oh yeah.
Let's
Drum
do it.
roll. Thou must be extremely clear about terms of access with zero ambiguity for future third-party products that you integrate with, especially if you own them.
Oh, I mean, absolutely
Yeah,
pen that pencil again, man. I mean, especially with this new AI generation that's all coming out, right? If
right.
you are
Yeah,
going to have a grandfathered of systems, right? GPT-3 to GPT Turbo to GPT-4 all have varying fixed costs across the board, right? So you have to have
yeah,
some type of plan in place for like how limits will evolve with more expensive features. I mean, if GPT gets up to GPT-7 and it's $1 a credit for God knows what kind of crazy sophistication it has, um, like you do have to just be clear about like, hey, this is our expectation for this, and here's what's going
yeah.
to happen with the users.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that extends to your terms as well, because what we were very clear on, and we kind of had foresight at least about this problem because of the credit structure on background removal. So we are well prepared for even this whole Jack GPT era. And the way we managed it was we had a credit system and also a liability on the third party. So like the third party could one day just refuse to provide service, and or they can dramatically increase their price like Twitter did recently, right? So
Yeah.
how does a founder handle those situations? And it's very important for users to now understand the position of the companies they decided to invest in. Do you see issues with the Twitter thing, like when like the Twitter API cost just went rampant?
Oh yeah.
What
We
was
see it with Twitter and LinkedIn a lot, just because there's a lot of red tape around those platforms with their API and such like that. And I mean, it's just learning from all of us, right? I mean, we know going forward that those probably aren't good products for lifetime deals, right? I mean, sometimes you have to take a self-assessment and be like, okay, is this
yeah,
a good fit? And like be honest with yourself and be honest with your potential buyers, right? And sometimes
yeah,
there's not a yes answer that can come out of it. At the end of the day, if Twitter is turning on and off API integration or access, or the costs are exuberant, right? You'd rather have
yeah,
something that's designed to be here in a year and 2 years than a silver bullet that looks cool on paper and then falters.
yeah, yeah. And I think these days, at least, marketing something as a silver bullet looks extremely weird. Like, it's not going to come across well for your positioning at all. Like I think people are very aware, like of APIs and credits. Like these things are becoming more widespread. So yeah, no, I appreciate that. I think we've covered everything, man. Like this is, I had to push back at you guys on just, based on all the rules we went through. Is there anything I'm missing that you think that I know
I
you
That's a good
expanded
question.
on so much nuance, which I'm going to take into account when I rewatch this. But
I mean, I have
Brendan, you
one
got
that I
anything?
always tell my partners is don't treat a lifetime deal like a silver bullet, right? Like if you come to
Exactly.
AppSumo, the goal shouldn't just be to make a bunch of revenue in a month and get a bunch of users and not leverage that for external growth after the campaign, right? You want to build out some type of philosophy of how you're going to collect a community, leverage a community, and then grow that to continue the brand, right? And that's how we get bigger logos than most parties that come to AppSumo for lifetime deals, right? It's not about discounting your software or whatnot. It's about unlocking a community of people who are vocal, give you a bunch of feedback, come to your website, classify the tool, and then really leveraging all of that and using it for big pushes in marketing or positioning or vernacular, right? So
Yeah.
if you do a lifetime deal, I'd say make sure you know where all these users are going to go, right? What does that drip sequence look like? You have a community. Are you looking for a specific answer to a hypothesis, right? Kind of unlock a little bit more long-term vision and bake it into that concept of a lifetime deal.
Yeah, just to have extra clarity on what you mentioned, like, can you define what you mean by don't treat your lifetime deals like a silver bullet? Like, what do you mean by that exactly? Give me an example of it, if you
Yeah,
could.
like I tell everyone, because a lot of people ask about the value of a lifetime deal or how is this sustainable, right? All of those features becomes a lot more sustainable when you're looking at, I'm not going to get 1,000 users and they're going to pay once, right? That shouldn't be your concept of it, regardless of how much revenue you make. It should be, I'm going to get 1,000 users and how do I make sure that they're engaged, giving me valuable feedback on my company and using them as a community, using them as a vocal point, using them for external affiliate programs or whatnot. You want to
Yeah,
treat it more as a 6-month strategy than just a 1-month campaign.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, totally get that. Like the philosophy of transparency to grow and build would be a great summary. So I'm going to put that in. That's a great potential role. Anything else that comes to mind that
No,
we're
I think
missing?
I
that
have
one's
one
like
more.
pretty encompassing on like at least from my perspective, like that kind of if you're focused more on the community aspect than a quick cash grab,
Yeah,
like that brings in a lot of the other rules we had already talked about.
exactly. I think it's very tempting for founders to take the cash grab route.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. Like, I wish I did a bit of cash grabbing. To be honest, like,
Yeah.
I wish I kind of like put aside like 50 grand or 100 grand to like settle and do some interesting with that. But everything went back into the company, and that may be the right decision for sure, but there's also a lot of mistakes. I actually have an Indie Hackers article on all the mistakes we did with our initial lifetime deal revenue. And I think the biggest
Interesting.
things we did was we got overconfident because like we saw it as this thing that could always be tapped into, like this
Yeah.
endless kind of like pool of like never ending revenue. Like whenever we ran a lifetime deal, we got great results. And we soon realized that there was this tendency in the community to know, this kind of opinion in the community that it just seems distasteful to continuously run lifetime deals, right?
I think that honestly, I think a cash injection is a
Yeah,
massive benefit of a lifetime deal, but it shouldn't be your main goal. It should be an
yeah,
added benefit. So I think honestly, having that be rule number one, like walking into a lifetime deal, main objective shouldn't be the things that are short term. It should be focused on the longevity.
don't focus on short-term goals.
Because like the cash injections one time, you can
Yeah,
blow that. But if you don't harness the community and like take advantage of the awareness you're getting, the feedback, and
yeah,
build it into something that has longevity, then you're not really getting, in my opinion, like the full benefit of a lifetime deal. You're not really taking advantage of that.
yeah. I mean, I have a lot of thoughts on this because my opinion is this. You're right, yes, but how you structure the revenue post launch is very important, and this is where we drove into. We could have done so many things so much more better. Number one, don't dismiss that just developing your product is part of PLG. Like, you will gain growth and traction just by continuously developing the product and putting that out there in snippets. What we thought, and this is kind of the poor dynamic I had internally, without pointing anyone in my team or anything like that, but the there was this bias in our team to say that we need to go aggressive on marketing. So as soon as that revenue started coming, there was less on product development and more on the marketing ecosystem. So just more pumping ads now on lifetime deals, scaling like more partnerships to increase visibility on our lifetime deal. And that just continued aggressively, and it brought more revenue. But the focus was, and my attentions were pulled away from product building and development. And we weren't able to pivot fast enough. Like we could have had what we have now as Glorify, which we're extremely proud of, in under half a year if we had spent more time intentfully there. And a problem with this result was also because the fact that we had to scale the team. We had an ungodly overhead within month 2. And that was really foolish. Just in the name of marketing, we had an ungodly overhead by month 2. This, you're talking about like a 10 grand budget on ads, the a 3K budget on just the agency, the media buyer, social media, and just for any founders information, like posting on social media is not going to get you tons of users. Like this is the kind of illusion we created for ourselves. Like, okay, we need to have lots of content. We need to have lots of go to any like successful SaaS company's YouTube channel. Like, do you see thousands of videos on there? No, you just see informative videos that helps you understand how to use your SaaS, and let organic do its thing to then, let users find, okay, how to do X with SaaS, Y, right?
I mean,
that's how
the socials is, the big point of the socials is just buyer security when they're making that decision, right? If you come to a website organically, you're going to check to see, do they have a LinkedIn following? Are they updated on Facebook? Are they updated on Twitter? Which will get them through the funnel faster, but I don't necessarily believe it's the best top of the funnel metric, right?
I totally agree with you. And so for us, it's totally about that what we've soon realized is not about the quantity of content you put on these platforms or channels. It's more about having some content on there so that it seems like it's up to date and there's life in this company versus, just trying to, because the strategy we had was just aggressive, was just like pump as much content as possible. YouTube and like Instagram, and we burnt a lot of cash, unfortunately. And that's the illusion. Like, content is great. If you need to definitely pump revenue to content, it would be SEO, and that's proven. Like we get 50K hits on our website month over month, and that's our lifeline. And it wasn't until we started developing that we started generating free cash. So this is like a huge thing. Like we lost a lot of money because we scaled overhead way too early in the wrong places. And I genuinely think that founders should take a little portion of that lifetime revenue to, pursue some of like settling some of his personal goals. I didn't do any of that. Like I think to this day I have that regret. And I'm not talking about an ungodly amount to buy that Lamborghini or something stupid, but like just like cover your debts. Like I didn't do that. I still have a student loan to pay. And I thought I made that decision thinking, okay, look, I'll pay it over time. I'll pay myself a salary and like offset the cost from the company in the name of building the features. But like I have a lot of anxiety, still, because I'm like 4 years in 2019 and I have a lot of regret because of that, so this is something I think anyway.
This is why you're building this out. So the next guy doesn't have regrets. He's got a little.
Yeah, no, of course. 100%. And that's what keeps me motivated, pushing forwards.
I like that. I mean, I think like reward yourself isn't that bad of a tenet, right? I mean, you should have some professional and like personal goals with everything you do, right? I mean, founders talk about that. Like, what would a lifetime deal mean to you? What would X users mean to your company? What would X revenue mean for your company, right? And I think people can attach to something a lot more if they can see themselves in it too.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we get deluded the fact that we pump it all into this thing, but you got to, self-love is very helpful sometimes, for sure. I want to ask you guys something because I feel like you guys will have the best definition of this word, people I've spoken to. How do you define grandfathering previous users? Like, what does that mean to you guys?
Yeah, so essentially, I'll just stick in terms of like AppSumo, right? It obviously gets unique when we're figuring out if you did an alternative campaign on another website and then came to AppSumo. For AppSumo, we have pretty much the same model every campaign, right? We either have 5 tiers or a certain amount of codes. Essentially, every time a company comes back for a lifetime deal, we want their offer to be better than the first round to elicit excitement, get people to continue to upgrade. So pretty much grandfathering works in every single AppSumo campaign. And essentially that means if we worked with an email marketing company and they bought 2 codes at $138 for 5,000 emails, and that same company came back a year later and it was now 10,000 emails instead of 5,000, all the users who got code 2 a year ago now have 10,000 instead of 5,000. So
Right.
it's basically just saying where you're at present, you have to reward the people who bet on you early.
Yeah. And I think this is where like users get confused with that term, because when you tell them, hey, you're going to be grandfathered in, to a lot of people that means like, what does that mean exactly? And I think you just have to be more specific about, okay, look, this is the new deal and you're going to be getting the same. It's what it says on the tin, I guess, really helped, like for us at least, because we started using that. People like, what do you mean? Further into this.
It's all about security from the right. They know that in the future with respect.
Right. No, and that's a great definition. I appreciate that.
Awesome, man.
Cool.
Well, it's been an absolute
guest here. I know this conversation. We have this segment called Take One, Give One. Essentially what this means is the guest from our last episode is asking you a question and you're going to answer it. I joke because we never actually remember the question from the last guest, but this time I wrote it down. I listened to it before. So I saw you have a pretty decent team and you work with a couple of people. His question was essentially aspirations with the companies. Is everyone on the same page with it, or do you kind of have any, I guess, unclarity on those points? That's kind of where the world is.
Do I have understanding of my coach vision as well as my own? Like, as in, clear on. I think I do. I think I'm just more clear on my vision of what building a tech company is for me. But oh, man, this is a hard one. It's really, really hard. I don't think
Should we give a shout